Well, guess what? I think it is that time, the time of the day, time of the night, time of the afternoon, but it is morning. We are live here on Garden America, broadcasting from the iHeartMedia and Entertainment Studios. I'm Brian Main, John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox. If you're listening to a replay, you must be tuned in on BizTalk Radio or streaming, or let's see, we've got Spotify, we've got Google, we've got all kinds of ways to hear us. YouTube. Yeah. Well, that's going to be later on today for the new episode, for this one, because we upload the new episode.
Good job.
Okay, I covered the bases. I think so. A lot of support this morning.
I just started to get dizzy.
Yeah.
Kevin says good morning.
Good morning,
Joe
Kevin.
Nelson says it's a great show. What did he say? What did Joe say? Fantastic show, great show.
Already? We haven't even started.
Well, let me tell you, the first minute of this show is always award-winning. Yeah. After the first minute, you can turn it off and you're not going to miss anything.
Hey, Carla says that in case anybody's interested, that Nucio's is still open.
Oh, wow. She went up there?
Yeah, she said she talked to the brothers yesterday.
Okay. Still selling things down
Camellias.
out there, huh?
Camellias. I did a commercial for a nursery back east or someplace, and when it came to the word camellia, next to it, it said, just like Amelia.
Just like Amelia?
In case somebody reading
Camellia.
it wouldn't have
Just
known.
put a K sound in front of it.
Right.
Good luck to our northern friends, right?
Oh,
I mean,
my gosh.
big storm happening up north.
And another one behind it, right?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So it's no breaks.
How
for
far
them.
north is it right now? Roughly?
So I know, one of our longtime listeners, Kathy, has been posting. It seems like it's centered right over Eureka. So
coming down this way, do you think it'll make it?
It's what was today and tomorrow. We were supposed to get a chance, but I think that
maybe
that chance is dwindling with every minute that passes.
But I think the second one may hit us around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I think that's what
Not
they
sure.
said. But
That'll be nice. I'm going to be home all tucked away on Thanksgiving.
yeah, right.
It's your birthday.
Yeah, it falls on Thanksgiving this year. Every,
Yeah.
4 or 5 years? This is the latest in the month that Thanksgiving can ever occur, too. Because sometimes it's like...
it can't be the 29th, can't be the 30th.
Well, usually it's like the prior week we just had,
Right.
usually.
Right.
Because
It's
it's
like the
always the
24th.
fourth Thursday.
Right. So we're late this year.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I had a whole podcast listened to about the calendar. And like where it came from and why we do the things we do and the moon and the sun.
Did they mention Caesar as far as the calendar? Julius Caesar? Didn't he have something to do with the calendar?
Did he?
Augusta, something like that, John. Do a fact check.
But-
No, seriously, look.
Caesar Augustus?
Augustus?
Yeah.
I don't know. Don't we use the Gregorian calendar?
Yeah.
But
Let me.
anyway, I'm sorry. Go
So,
ahead, Tiger.
anyways, it's very interesting, right? Like on why we have the calendar, what the calendar means, why we have a leap year, why February has 28 days, but then at the end of it, they said we could solve all the problems if we would switch to a 13-month calendar. So rather than having 12, we put 13.
Then we'd be younger.
Every day would have exactly, I can't remember what they said. Every month would have exactly 28 days. Every month would start on like a Monday and end on like a Sunday. And every month would have like 4 weeks.
There would be more order to it.
It would match up
and
with
we'd be younger, a month younger.
It would match up with the moon, and it would match up with everything that's supposed to match up if we would have just changed that.
So why did we go to a 12-month calendar?
Well, it's just the way it's been.
That's a good answer.
Well, 13's an unlucky number. Who wants to have that for a whole year?
But it's a natural
Every year
number,
would be an
right?
unlucky year.
13, isn't
I
that
I don't
a
know. You know
natural
what? If I
number?
was still playing sports, I'd want number 13.
Yeah.
But you never used to see that, and now it doesn't matter. Now people are wearing it all the time. They're not. I guess
Hotels don't have a 13th floor, right?
What's that?
Hotels don't have a 13th floor.
And, well, a lot of office buildings as
Yeah.
well. There's no 13th floor, even though you're technically on the 13th floor. It goes from 12 to 14.
Yeah.
Oh well, you know what?
Good reason, too.
Yeah. Goodness gracious.
Hey, Tanya said she had some rain last night, and she's in San Jose, so it was raining down as low as San Jose for sure. So maybe we'll get some. We can use some.
Yeah. I mean, anytime we get rain, it's good. So
But we're going to have a good show today. Our buddy Ed Laivo's coming on.
Eddie's
Yeah.
going to be with us.
it's gonna be a long
Anything
show.
you want to know.
Eddie Laivo.
He and
Tom Spellman.
Tom Spellman.
Tom Spellman, right, are two of the most knowledgeable people in the United States, if not the world, on fruit trees.
Yeah.
And as far as enthusiasm goes, Ed's
Yeah.
probably number one in the world.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You look at these comments sometimes, they make you laugh. Here's Tanya. Brock Purdy, San Francisco 49ers, number 13. I love it. Tanya, that's what we're looking for. No, she corrected herself. Yeah, we know. Purdy. Yeah, she said Purdue.
Oh.
It's Purdy. Number 13.
Well,
But
they
yet-
probably autocorrect. They do things like that.
So, Ed today and talk about fruit trees. But at the same time, as you said, we can talk about a lot of different stuff. And Ed's there.
Yeah.
He's great for asking questions, too. So if you have any questions, line him up.
In
Get
any
him-
part
get
of
him in
the country,
queue.
too, right?
Yeah, because he can cover wherever you're from.
Now there is
Good
going to be an
knowledge.
underlying theme that's not going to be positive, but we're going to address it as we discussed prior to going
I
on
don't
the air
think that's
this
going to be
morning.
a theme. That could be a topic.
I thought.
Yeah, but that's a pretty huge
Yeah.
do
theme
you
or
think
topic.
that many people are interested in your childhood, really?
Absolutely. The only
right.
reason I bring it up is I get emails asking about my childhood.
Well, you got your birthday coming up. I just rehashing old wounds. I don't know if it's important.
So
Rehashing
what's your dessert for birthday? It's your birthday. You get to pick the dessert. What are you having?
Well, if I was still eating a lot of sugar,
Why don't you on your birthday? It's your birthday.
oh, I could. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, that's a hard question. I'm going to say pecan
What?
pie. Pecan pie.
Pecan pie. Ooh, that is a lot of sugar.
Well,
Yeah, that is a lot of sugar.
yeah. It's like your month's worth of sugar.
Now
I'm not a sweets guy per se, but
is
yeah.
pecan pie molasses? Is that where they get the sugar from in pecan pie?
Well, every time
it's
you ask a
very
question,
sweet.
and I don't know the answer, I look to John because I'm hoping he'll chime in. Because John, when it comes to pecans, the expert.
The pecan pie has been one of my least favorite desserts.
It's very sweet.
of
It's
my
really-
whole life. I tasted one once, and
Really?
I agree, it was sweet,
Yeah.
but
I like them though.
I haven't had one
I like pecan pie
in years.
You don't like it though, huh?
no.
Is it
and I know
too
some
sweet,
people,
or is it
some
just the
people
pecan?
love pecan
It's really
pie.
sweet.
It just depends on
No,
what
I like
you're
banana
used to.
cream pie, coconut cream pie. That's all good.
So
I
you're a
used to
pie.
love
You're-
Marie
You're
Callender's
not a cake.
fresh peach pie.
The cake's
You're-
okay.
You're not a cake. You're not a cookie.
The thing is,
You're a
whenever I have
pie.
cake, I want to eat it too, and that's when you get into a situation.
Remember that time you left it out in the rain?
Yes,
Yeah.
and you know what? I'm never going to have that recipe again. That's the sad part.
That's
Are
why
you
you
guys
don't.
singing a
That's why
song
you
right
don't
now?
like this for your birthday, right? No
Are you
cake
guys
for
singing a song
no
right
cake
now?
for you.
We're actually quoting MacArthur Park.
Oh goodness.
Who was that? That sang
That was oh my gosh.
wasn't Richard Harris.
Yes,
was it?
Richard Harris.
Was it really?
Yeah, Richard Harris. Yes.
Wow.
And then you know who else did it? Donna Summer did a remake in the late '70s.
A disco version.
Now they toned it down, but you know what? His song. Oh, there's so many euphemisms in that song, Tiger.
Yeah.
Right, John? It just everything is. Well, what does that really mean? Yeah, MacArthur Park.
So pecan pie is your birthday treat.
I guess but again, I like coconut. I like the cream pies.
Yeah.
Cakes. They're all right.
Yeah.
Anything vanilla.
Anything vanilla?
Yeah.
You like vanilla?
Love vanilla.
All right.
I
Good to know.
I was reading an article on vanilla. Now that you mention it, and how a lot of vanilla is produced in Mexico.
Right.
But I don't know. Is Mexican vanilla really true vanilla?
What
There's
what
always
do you mean?
I don't know. Either they
Like
water.
you mean the vanilla extract is
Yeah.
produced in Mexico?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's probably not real vanilla.
Okay. Well, because I know sometimes you can buy vanilla flavoring,
Right.
which is different than vanilla extract.
Yeah.
But anyway, I read that because of hotter temperatures in some of the areas where they've been growing vanilla and drought, that the market's going to be really,
Well, real vanilla is very expensive.
yeah.
Like when you go to buy, go to the grocery store, you buy that vanilla extract. It's like whatever,
Yeah.
a couple bucks. But then you go to buy real vanilla, it's very expensive. So
Now, does it keep forever?
I don't think so. Like the extract or the
Yeah,
real
the
vanilla?
extract.
Oh yeah, I've got vanilla that I've had for like my mom used to have a cookie store. And so, when you have a cookie store, you buy vanilla by the gallon jug.
Uh-huh. How much would that cost?
I don't even know.
Like $2,000
But-
for a gallon?
but at the same
You gotta
time,
sell a lot of cookies.
that jug, I think we've had it for 25 years. So I don't know if that's good or not. I might be getting in trouble here, but we still use it.
Sharon used to every Christmas would come out with. She would make vanilla cookies. Do you remember that?
Yeah, exactly. Sure.
And
Vanilla cookie?
yeah,
Vanilla,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Was it
vanilla.
not no
She-
chocolate chips? Like what's
No, this was like a family recipe.
Right.
Something that her family looked forward to every year, and she would put out that recipe. Supposed to be pretty good.
We got a break coming up, and we've got to get to your quote on the other side. Ed Laivo will be on, or I should say, on deck.
Yeah.
On deck. He's our guest today, Ed Laivo, talking fruits and a lot of other things here on Garden America. So do stay with us. Thank you for tuning in. Those on Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. Love seeing you. Love having you. And we're going to take a break for Biz Talk Radio. Pay some bills. Our many sponsors, our major sponsor, of course, Fertilome. Thank you for supporting our show. Back after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. All righty. Hope you had a good break. We are back here on Garden America. Good to have you along as we kick things off live on a Saturday morning, or perhaps a pre-recorded show that you're listening to. That's well and good as well. Well and good as well. Let's repeat the word well. Speaking of well, Tiger, Ed Laivo is standing by. He's ready to go, but John's got the quote of the week first of all, and then we'll bring on Ed Laivo. Thank you, John, for that reminder.
You're welcome. I was going to mention that you went to the well once too often there.
Now, see, that's good. I'm going to drop the mic. Nothing else needs to be said.
All right. Quote of the week is for Thanksgiving, Brian. And the quote is, "It's up to us to choose contentment and thankfulness now and to stop imagining that we have to have everything perfect before we'll be happy."
And who is that by?
That was by Joanna Gaines from the Magnolia Network.
I know Rowdy Gaines. Who was Rowdy Gaines?
Who was Rowdy Gaines?
I think, wasn't Rowdy Gaines a wrestler?
I think
Or
you're
a
right.
Boxer?
I think a wrestler. Rowdy
Rowdy
Gaines.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
I think we better get serious here at
Yeah.
least for a little while here and bring on Ed Laivo.
All right. So this morning, I'm gonna read Ed's Facebook experience because I mean we all know Ed. He's been a great friend of the show, but I mean this list of where you've been and what you've done, Ed. I mean this is great. We've got former director of sales and marketing at Burchell Nursery, current owner and CEO of Ed Able Solutions. Former sales marketing director at Four Winds, former director of sales at Devil Mountain Nursery, marketing at Dave Wilson Nursery, inventory control and out-of-state sales at Oakey Nursery, manager at Urban Tree Farm. You went to Fairfield High School, went to Napa High School. He studied plant science at Napa Valley Community College. He lives in Modesto, but he's from Providence, Rhode Island. Ed, is there anywhere you haven't been or anything you haven't done?
And why haven't you been able to keep a job?
Yeah, that's my next question.
I'm good for about 5 years everywhere, except for Dave Wilson. Dave Wilson, only because they gave me the keys of the company, and I went, well, geez, in that case, I'll stay.
Oh, thank you for joining us, Ed. Always a pleasure to have you on the program.
I think people can only tolerate me so long. You know what I mean?
Well, I think, Ed, I've been told that you are more or less an acquired taste.
I am. I think everybody thinks they know who I am until they work with me. And then they find out, uh-oh.
Oh.
He's not who, and HR hates me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I am an HR nightmare, you bet. And proud of it, as a matter of fact. I think that, challenging HR means that you go, hey, you know what? People need to be a little bit more untethered.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, a little loose. Loosen up a little bit, right?
Correct, yeah.
That's how they push the envelope
I think
on
we're
everything.
too much suppressing some of the brilliant young horticulturists we have out there because we say, sorry, I'm penalizing you because you didn't take your lunch on time.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, so Ed, now currently you've got Edable Solutions, where you're focusing on some of the nice thing about working for yourself is that you get to focus on whatever it is that you want to talk about, right? So you're not tethered by one particular company at the moment. You're working for all the different companies and showing people new varieties, showing people different approaches and, wonderful YouTube videos and Facebook videos that people can watch and learn from. It's really neat to be able to see some of the stuff that you've been teaching us on Facebook. What inspired you to get behind this?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's something I've done my entire career. So I think I've been more what I would always consider a push marketer, where I want to take and feed the public, first, and then have them go in and demand, whatever it is they've experienced and get excited about. So I've always thought that was the proper way to do things. And no better example than the 15 years we did the fruit tastings at Dave Wilson Nursery all over the state of California, and had hundreds and hundreds of people come in and sample fruit at a level that they'd never experienced at the grocery store ever before. So I think, it's an exciting thing to be handed, a challenge to, hey, go out and, challenge your palate. Don't be satisfied with what's in the grocery store. Please don't be satisfied with what's in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to be satisfied with that sometimes.
I think it's almost damaging right now because, I just came out of, because of the crash of the almond industry is the reason why I left Burchell, because they're just really, the almond industry just isn't there. And there's really, that's a whole nother story. But the fact of the matter is that I learned a lot working on the commercial side, which I've really only had the opportunity to with, my good friends at Burchell. And what I learned was that there's this attitude that the consumer is losing interest in stone fruit and losing interest in apples. And that's baloney. The fact of the matter is that they're losing interest in the garbage that's in the grocery store, that's being served up. It has no flavor. And this new generation, the 25 to 40-year-olds, balking at that.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is hand them one of it, and they'll go, I've never had a plum like this. I've never had a peach like this. I've never had a nectarine like this. And you can kind of see that, the dollars almost flow out of their wallet, with the experience. So, and that's what it's all about. It's all about generating dollars at the expense of somebody's wonderful experience with a great piece of fruit.
And it's funny, Ed, because it almost contradicts what they really do at grocery stores a lot of times. Like let's take the chip aisle as an example. You're going to have your sour cream and onion chips. You're going to have your Doritos. You're going to have your tortilla chips. But whenever you walk down the chip aisle, you also see that weird, chickens and waffles, or, like sriracha and, sardines, and they just throw out the most random flavored chip.
At least there's no chemicals involved.
Yeah.
Well,
but they throw them.
And my big gripe has been for years when we start applying generic names to fruit in the grocery store, we're not doing it for the convenience of the customer. We're doing it to cover up the fact that we don't want to take and give people a name to associate with a bad experience. And that's always been my feeling when it came to plums, because years and years and years ago, all of a sudden plums started being called black plum, red plum, yellow plum, instead of by their names. And why was that? It was because the plums were terrible. And so you can't expect somebody to get excited about, having a La Rota plum, and then coming back for it if you then put up, a number of different varieties after that are terrible.
Yeah.
So the safety comes in, make a generic, and then that way they'll have one good experience and 5 bad.
Hey, Ed. Sorry to cut you off again, but we're going to have to take a break for one quick sec. We'll be back. We'll keep chatting with Ed Laivo.
It'll be a quick break here on Facebook Live, a little bit longer on Biz Talk Radio, but those on Facebook Live, questions, comments, we're talking fruits. Probably no question's going to be too tough for Ed, so take advantage of it now. This is Garden America taking a break, back after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. All right, just like that, we are back. Facebook Live, Biz Talk Radio, the topic, fruits, and probably everything else that does revolve around the fruit industry. Ed Laivo is our guest, Tiger, as we continue.
Yeah, and before the break, we were kind of chatting about, one of the issues is at the grocery stores where they're just putting generic labels on a lot of the fruits, white peach, a red plum, black plum, yellow plum, and not identifying the actual fruit and what it is. So that way you know what you're buying, that the actual varietal that you're buying. Because at the end of the day, I mean, they want you to just buy a plum. They don't want you to associate it with a variety, because if they can't get that variety, because all these things are very seasonal, they don't want you to walk out. So they want you to just grab what's there. But Ed, kind of like what you're saying and kind of what I was hinting at is, if they change out these varieties and put names on them, people will start to learn, what they like, what they don't like, and they'll be excited when that plum, peach, apricot comes back into market if we knew what we were looking for. So, I mean, we need to be more advocates about these grocery stores or these places labeling their stuff, or, Ed, probably we could direct people to start shopping more farmers markets, because they do that at farmers markets, right?
That's just been a trend lately, okay? And I think it really reflects what I'm saying, and that is, even in the farmers market, some of those growers, that fresh fruit growers, they can plant a variety that isn't so good at times, and that variety then, may become a dog in terms of their sales, but they can't afford to have any of them be dogs. My big push is this. There's a heck of a lot of varieties of fruit out there, and there's wonderful hybridizers like the Zegers, for instance, that are out there producing these great varieties of fruit. But, you got to harvest them at the right time, and then you have to know that they have the shelf life before you plant them. And that knowing they have the shelf life before you plant them, in many cases, that information is already out there. Or two, the hybridizers are looking at extended shelf life. Some of the varieties I've looked at Zegers this year, one of the outstanding characteristics are the long hang times on some of the plum pluots and interspecific hybrids that I've been eating this year. Look, we're talking hang times of 2 months, 3 months, where you can harvest fruit.
Hey, Ed, let me ask you. I'm sorry.
One tree.
I was going to ask you this: is it in their best interest to keep the public generally ignorant for their own purposes?
It has been, and it's the public's responsibility now to know that they need to ask for these fruits, the ones they like, by name. I want to know this name, and why do I want to know this name? One, I may want to run back for it, right, before it's gone this season. Or two, I want to ask for it by name from this grower next season. So that's promoting your future sales as well. So generic, titles just don't serve anybody well. It doesn't tell the grower what they should push and replant.
Yeah, so true.
And replace.
So true.
So it's just it's a marketing. Let's just call it a marketing style that now has run its course.
Yeah.
It needs to go away.
Well, we were talking prior to you coming on, Ed, about how I feel that apples have actually gone the opposite. They've come out and focused on selling varieties rather than generic labels, and people look for those. And there's a lot of great varieties of apples that came out. And one of our listeners, actually, Brian's really familiar with this listener.
He happens to be my wife, Dana.
She wants to know about Cosmic Crisp apples. She said that she likes them a lot, and they're always consistent with the taste. They're always crispy.
Well, there's an interesting story behind that, and I'll have to let me kind of give you my position right off the bat. The apple industry up in Washington is suffering as well, and I think that's the same ill. And it's funny you point that out, John, because their ill is different. Everything that comes out was being hybridized to taste like a Fuji, just have different color. They were all sugar bombs.
Yeah.
No real complexity to the flavor of the apple. And they have the same comeback. The American consumer doesn't like apples anymore. That is so far-fetched. It isn't funny. Apples are one of the most diverse category of fruits we have. And to say that is to be ignorant of the fact that what you're producing for the consumer is pretty much consistently just like the other variety. Cosmic Crisp is an attempt to put Honeycrisp to get Honeycrisp away, because the Washington growers don't like Honeycrisp, because it gets too big on the tree. It causes all kinds of problems and thinning, and it's just a really, really tough apple to grow. So the Washington hybridizers came up with this Cosmic Crisp, huge marketing push, for it. And then, they're hoping that it catches on to eventually push the Honeycrisp off, which is a more difficult tree to grow. That's the history of the Cosmic Crisp in its simplest form. Honeycrisp comes out of Minnesota, and Washington, of course, produced the Cosmic Crisp.
Yeah, must kind of working.
It's a great apple. But when you take I'll give you an example. There's two apples that I really like coming out of Washington right now, and that's going to be the Lucy Glow and the Lucy Rose. And those are both Honeycrisp hybrids.
I'm thinking back to when I was growing up and the number of apple varieties that were out there with distinctive flavors, because most of them were locally grown. But Kevin in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, is asking about one of those that's still held over from my childhood, but he doesn't see them year-round. And again, this is a seasonal thing, and he's asking about Macintosh apples.
Well, Mac's my favorite. That I come from a Macintosh apple background. We had Mac's when I was growing up in New England, and so I have a particular love of Macintosh apples. Now, there's a caveat to that. I don't like West Coast Macs at all, because they just don't have the snap and the bite of a Midwest or East Coast Mac. So there's a big distinction. But then that means I'm a Macintosh apple snob.
So,
and that's it, in a nutshell. But Mac's a great apple. It's a wonderful apple, and I agree totally. That's and guess what? Macintosh does well everywhere. It's one of the ones that Tom had down in his UC Irvine test that set fine down in a low chill. It's a recommended variety in the Bay Area, California. The San Francisco Bay Area.
But it doesn't ship as well as some of the other apples, and it's kind of confined to a certain season in the fall, right?
Well, how about this? If you really want to know, my big problem is in August, you're eating last year's apples.
Oh.
Wow.
I mean, in August every year, if you eat a Cosmic Crisp, it was picked last year.
Gosh.
So there's no
regional influence anymore at all. It's all cold stored and held in suspension. Now, I can take an apple in August and eat it, and I can taste the box. Yeah. When I say taste the box, I can taste the fact that it's been in storage. Either one, by the flavor of the box has been absorbed in the apple, or the flavor of the room it's in. Sometimes I think becomes a part of that characteristic.
So that's kind of a bummer, because like what we're talking about with grocery stores or places kind of doing themselves a disservice. Even if I like that Cosmic Crisp apple, I like it, when I have it now in the grocery store, and I like the way it tastes. But then if I see it in the grocery store in August, I'm going to buy that, and then I'm going to bite into it and be like, this is not right. This is not what I had before. This is not what I had.
I would, you know what, Tiger? I'd argue that the difference between my evaluation and the average consumer is that I think the Washington growers and the growers that actually do, service that market that way do a fine job of providing, these wonderful varieties, or these popular varieties all year round.
Uh-huh.
But the fact of the matter is that some of us wonder why these apples don't taste as good as they did last season.
Yeah,
and
so true.
I think we're kind of getting almost into the fruit snob, arena. But it needs to be said. People need to be aware of the fact that in August, more than likely, except your galas start to come in August, so some of the earlier varieties start to come in August. But in August, if you're eating a Macintosh apple, it was picked last year.
Yeah. Hey, Ed, we're going to have to take another break. When we get back, we'll keep chatting with Ed regarding all things fruit. And now I just figured out where the Apple company and the Macintosh came from. So
Yeah, there you go. And I think we're talking about the lack of consistency throughout the industry. So again, taking a break for Biz Talk Radio. Those on Facebook Live, I see some questions and some comments coming in. Keep them coming. A very popular topic. Everybody at one time or another is buying fruit. So let's find out more with Ed Laivo on the other side. Going to take a break. Back after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. Back on Garden America. Great show so far. Thank you for your support. Biz Talk Radio. A lot of activity on our Facebook page, comment section. Ed Laivo. We're talking everything about fruit, talking about the industry, lack of consistency. What are you really eating, Tiger, as we continue and find out more from Ed Laivo?
yeah, and before the break, Ed was just wrapping up talking about some of the Apple criteria and what people look for from apples and what people can expect in time of year. And I think I knew there was a Macintosh apple. I knew there was a Macintosh apple, but then I'm thinking that's the first computer too, Apple company
Macintosh Apple.
Yeah, and I just put the two together right now.
And don't forget Apple Records,
because I thought for instance, Macintosh the computer.
Yeah,
it had to do with something smart. I thought it had to do with if you're a Macintosh, it's somebody that was smart or something. I didn't put the Apple together with it.
And the Macintosh Apple was so good that they couldn't get one without a bite to take a picture.
So yeah, exactly.
Well, Macs go back into the 1800s. I think Mac was introduced sometime around 1870.
Oh, so it came before the computer?
So, it's been around a long time. It's been a staple for a long time.
Hey, Ed, when I introduced you onto the show, I was talking about some of these wonderful videos, that you have been putting together to kind of talk about fruit trees to people, to explain this kind of this idea of growing fruit trees. And I'm perusing right now your Facebook thread, and you talk about the Lucy Glow apple and the Lucy Rose apple. There's one on persimmons. There's kumquats, mandarins, all kinds of stuff. And so one of the things we wanted to bring you on the program for this morning was to kind of, we're getting into the next year where people can start picking some new trees. Maybe they found a place in the yard, maybe they bought a new home or moved into a new place, or maybe they're just getting started and they want to put something in a container. So we wanted to ask you, what are some maybe fruit trees, some new, maybe not so new, but just you're excited about fruit trees for people to be able to grow going into the next year?
Well, first let me point out that my Ed Able solution is also on YouTube, and that tends to be where I'm getting the most growth right now. To be exact, that one last word on persimmons that I put up yesterday, it's going nuts. And all it really was my attempt at an artistic rendition of saying, hey, look at, persimmons are great, not only, as an edible, but they're a tremendous edible ornamental, beautiful tree.
Yeah.
And I really think they are one of the most gorgeous landscape trees. And of course they feed you as well. But man, oh man, I got excited about so many different varieties this year because that's all I did this year. I just said, okay, I'm done. I'm going to do it my way. And I called all my friends and colleagues and said, hey, mind if I come by your orchard? Mind if I, come videotape in your orchard? Mind if I do that? All of my friends and colleagues were open to it. And so I spent the whole year just tasting new, bringing in, young colleagues and friends to experience fruit so I could videotape them for the first time, experiencing a great piece of fruit, getting their opinions. I really just want to make this more of a point where you start your exploration into what varieties you're going to plant, like you were saying, Tiger. People who are just looking to get into fruit right now, that's what this whole channel is all about. Come in, take a look at the videos, get excited. They're all very low-key. They're not made to be talking over your head. And everybody who's in this with me are friends and colleagues that have been exposed to fruit in the past, but a lot of these varieties are the first time they ever had them. pretty
That's
cool.
cool. That is
and
really
we
neat.
came on some jewels this year.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, through just the people you know and what they're growing. I mean, they're like, "Hey, come here into this back part of the orchard.
Yeah, right.
I got this crazy thing growing back here. Try it out." Right?
Oh yeah, and, to tell you the truth, you guys, if you're going to come up here next year, we could do that.
Yeah.
We could go over to take a trip to the Zegers, and you guys could taste some of the, incredible stuff coming out there. We go to Wilson's, we go to Burchell's. All these different places, and now I'm working with Generation Growers as well, which are citrus growers. And so they're, of course, accommodating me with exposure to great varieties of citrus for the rest of the season. So we'll have some fun. But I can point out some varieties if you'd like.
Yeah, please do.
That sounds like a good bus tour, Tiger.
Yeah, I know, right? I just got my wheels turning right
Hey,
there.
Ed, what causes some of the brown spots throughout apples when you cut into them?
The brown spots
inside the apple?
Yeah, Dana says, question, what causes brown spots sometimes found throughout an apple when you cut it open?
So it's not bruised.
No, just kind of brown spots, brown areas.
No, it could be from cold storage.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, could be from cold storage. It depends on where they're buying their apples and where they're coming from. There's also
Right.
a number of different diseases that could cause that. But I think what they're referring to could be, damage that's caused when it's in cold storage. And that, it happens quite frequently in the later season in apples.
And not to change topics too much, but when you talk cold storage for some of these things, are they freezing them or are they just keeping them in rooms that are cool?
They're keeping them in rooms. Yeah, they're keeping them in rooms that are cool. They're not freezing them. You can't freeze them because that'll destroy the cells.
Yeah.
So you got to keep them somewhere. I think it's somewhere around 38 degrees, something like that.
Like a refrigerator.
It suspends them.
Okay.
And then do they suck the ethylene out of the room too?
I don't know if they suck the ethylene out of the room, but I think that they inject the ethylene into the room when they're actually getting ready to, make them available.
Oh, okay. All right. Varieties, Ed. Oh, we got about a minute left before we have to take another break. So, if you want to tease, just want to let you know I will be cutting you off in about 50 seconds.
So something quick, some quick words of advice or some wisdom. Then we'll take a break, Ed, and come back and bring you on.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, like I said, one of the things that I really experienced this year that was really exciting is I learned about the cherry gene that the Zegers now have imparted onto their interspecific hybrids and the incredible influence that has had on this new generation of fruit coming from Zeger genetics.
So they're introducing the cherry gene into multiple varieties of fruit. This is going to be fun.
Okay, this will be fun.
This is going to be interesting.
All right, we're going to take a break for our friends on Biz Talk Radio because news is coming up top of the hour. We come back at about 6 minutes after the hour. Hopefully your market carries hour 2 of Garden America. The good news for Facebook Live, yes, one big long show. More with Ed Laivo coming up. Do stay with us. I'm Brian Main. Tiger Palafox, John Begnesco. It is Garden America. Stay with us. Garden America has returned. As you can tell, we always have a good time laughing and scratching. Here we go. It is hour 2 if you're on Biz Talk Radio. Now, again, we do have a lot of questions, comments on Facebook. Hang in there. We are going to get to those. First of all, though, back with Tiger and Ed as we address a few issues. Tiger?
So, Ed, before the break, you were talking about some new varieties and how you got really excited because over at Zeger, they're introducing some selections with the cherry gene in the fruit. Now this isn't like grafting. So, this isn't like they're putting, multiple fruit trees together like we know with grafting sometimes. This is actual.
No.
This is
actually hybridizing using very traditional methodology of the same methodology that Luther Burbank would have used, so it's all natural hybridization. Mm-hmm. But they've found what they call bridge varieties. And so bridge varieties are varieties that actually allow you to cross species. And so the Zegers have been, Floyd Zeger discovered some great bridge varieties for apricots to plums. That's the best example of our pluots and apriums that have come out of that. But they also now have isolated sweet cherry genes that actually cross apricots and plums as well. And the influence that these have had on this next generation of what they've been calling them pluaries. I'm not real big on that at all, but I'm definitely big on the fact that the influence of that sweet cherry is so obvious in these new varieties like Sweet Treat and Candy Heart and Flavor Punch pluary. The influence is so obvious, both in flavor and also I think this is the gene that's causing this extended harvest, which is just, it's couldn't be better for you picks, farmers markets, or the home garden.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, Ed, some of our listeners are wondering if you're talking about genetically modifying fruits. These are not GMOs, right?
No, not at all. To be exact, if you go on, my YouTube page, and you can see I just did a video on Zegers and the whole concept of whether or not they're GMOing. And who did the video? Tom Spellman. I actually took Tom Spellman and Lacey Gardner and actually said, okay, let's talk about what your hybridization process is in relation to the controversy over GMOing. There's no GMOing going on with the Zegers. It's, if anything, it'd be kind of accelerated. You're accelerating the process that nature would do naturally.
Yeah.
And, but to do that, you have to plant up 50,000 trees a year to be able to get to select 3.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
it's a simple process.
This has to do with pollinization and bringing that kind of stuff into it. It's not like, the other way around, right? So.
Right.
Yeah.
No. So you're not taking a fish gene and putting it into a, because that type of genetic modification, one, is expensive. You better be into a market that actually has, is going to benefit from it. So, for instance, genetic modification into controlling Honglong bean has been a big issue. And what are people going to do when they find out that the cure for HLB is going to be a genetically modified fruit, and we'll see where that leads. But soybeans already have gone through that process. So, the idea is the Zegers are still using conventional hybridization techniques and coming up with these incredible varieties. But you can't forget that Burbank did the same thing and Hesse did the same thing, and there's been so many different wonderful hybridizers
John
throughout
Bagnosco does
the last,
same thing.
200 years that have used conventional techniques to come up with a lot of the varieties that we just love.
Yeah.
If you think out of the box, though, you can use the genetic modifying, take the luminescent gene from plankton, put it into your fruit, and you can pick trees at night. So you got a 24-hour picking cycle.
There we go. Perfect.
See,
that's a
here's
good use of
you're kind of
science.
going into that gray area where people are going to throw stones at you.
I think we have some questions we need to get to
let's
here.
get John. What do we have?
Well, Marguerite mentioned that she uses Granny Smith and Arkansas Black apples for her pies and sauces. And I was going to ask Ed, because I think it was either he or Tom had told me that when Granny Smith's first came out, they were wonderful apples, but then because of the demand, the growers started picking them when they weren't quite ready to pick.
When they were still green?
Yeah, when they were still green, right. But so I'm wondering, have they rectified that, or is that still the case? Do you know, Ed?
The thing is that the fact is that Granny Smith is a November, December apple. And when Granny Smith is fully ripe, it's almost yellow. But the problem is that the popular pie apple for the holidays was the yellow Newton Pippin, which ripened, like in mid-October. And so Granny Smith comes and it's perfectly shaped, perfectly colored. And if you pick it in September, it's got this incredibly wonderful green skin without any sugar. So all you need to do is just add sugar. And it'll taste like something, but I'm not sure what. But Arkansas Black and a Granny Smith combination, if the Granny Smith's picked right, like let's say if you start to pick your Granny Smiths now, or even if at the beginning of November, let's say, you're probably picking a pretty decent apple. I've picked Granny Smith in January before, and they were incredible, and they were solid yellow. And they're incredible apples. So
Wow.
they're worthy of the distinction of being a tremendous apple, but they're definitely not that in September.
And people pick them when they're green. So, when they're green. So yeah.
Ed, is there any truth to the claim that you go to bed reading the apple varieties of New York?
I love the apple varieties of New York, both volumes that I got them in my library. But I've studied that. That was my typical fun reading back 30 years ago. Now it's a reference.
Tiger thought I was kidding with that question.
I love it.
This is off deciduous fruit for a second. Carla wants to know about mandarins because she said when Sumos first came out, she thought they were indescribably good, but she says they're almost as much as they used to be, and she doesn't seem that to her it doesn't seem that they taste the same. Is that just because she's used to the flavor and not surprised anymore, or do you know if there's a change there?
I don't know if there's a change there, John. I can't say, but I do like your idea that maybe she's become more acquainted with it.
Yeah.
But if there's so many different, incredibly wonderful mandarins. This is the era of the mandarin right now. It was started by the cuties, and the cuties, of course, are clementines. I'm going to do a video on that. But the clementines, were being imported from Spain, and then, a grower decided that they're going to plant a whole bunch of those up, and they planted a whole bunch of those up, and they weren't finding the market for them, and they got together with another very, very powerful group and made a marketing alliance and came up with this idea of the cuties. And the cuties really revolutionized the taste buds of the consumer, and also introduced them to this whole new, very old, ancient genre of fruit, the mandarin, of course, and allowed for all these other incredible, Gold Nugget and Pixie and Lee Nova. There's so many incredible mandarins, to experience now that I think the Sumo almost falls back into the average category.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like the basic apple of the mandarin now that there's all these other really neat, they're comparing it to there, huh?
Sometimes you get a deal. They're like $2.99 or $3.99 a pound, but you don't stop and think each one weighs about 5 pounds.
Right. They are big and they're difficult to grow. They're not an easy variety to grow. They're kind of like the Honeycrisp of citrus for the growers. So the growers, I think, that our Sumo growers would love to see another variety come in that could command as high a price and actually be more easy to, of course, cultivate.
All right, we're going to have to take another break, Ed. Thank you for keeping with us. Got a few more questions coming up, and we'll continue chatting with Ed Laivo after the break.
Yes, indeed. And again, great questions, comments there on Facebook Live. Going to take a break for you. I'm talking about you on Biz Talk Radio. And a big thank you to Fertilome, our major sponsor here on Garden America. Back after these messages, more with Ed Laivo on the other side here on Garden America. All right, just like that, we are back. Thank you for those tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, the rest of us on Facebook Live. And a great opportunity if you do listen to us on Biz Talk Radio. Join us live every week, 8 o'clock on the West Coast, 11 o'clock Eastern Time Zone to actually participate live and ask your questions and really become a part of the show. Back with Ed Laivo, Tiger.
Yeah, and, Ed was just answering the question regarding some mandarins before the break, some clementines. I think we were talking about the Sumo variety. And I think, do we have a few more questions, John, or are we all caught up at the moment?
A couple more. One was a more of a comment, I guess, but maybe Ed could talk about, the time to plant bare root fruit trees because we have Terry and Kevin in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, that said that they got a huge apple crop this year, but the tree started in Ocean Beach, and then they moved it to Poway, and now it's in Coeur d'Alene.
Wow.
My gosh, what a hardy tree.
Yeah, and it's 12 years old and terrific crop. But when can you move fruit trees, Ed, to be safe, and when's the best time to plant?
I can tell you that I would not be the one encouraging people to move trees, from, where did you say, Oceanside?
Oceanside, Poway, and then Idaho.
Exactly.
Yeah, to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So I probably wouldn't be the first to go, yeah, that's a great idea. Here, let me tell you how you do it.
But everybody doesn't have access to thousands of
Yeah.
trees if they want one.
Sure.
No, right. But I got to tell you, there's some great nurseries up in Idaho. I've spent so many years up in Idaho, worked with, Idaho State University up there for some time, on introducing different varieties of fruit. So, it's a wonderful state, for, great access to fruit trees, no doubt. But, it's bare root time. That's what you're planning on planting right now. Trees will be coming into the nursery within the next, say, 3 or 4 weeks, and you'll start to see, ads and stuff for, availability on those varieties. The other thing that's starting to come in now, and it's going to be becoming a big part of the nursery industry, and that's the container plants. And the container plants are really, it's almost the way the nursery industry is moving right now. So things like your blueberries and your figs and your pomegranates all tend to come in containers now, with rooted containers. They're an excellent product, and they're a wonderful product. And I had a lot to do with establishing that market way back in the mid to late 90s, because I got tired of writing credits on figs and pomegranates every year from bare root. They're better from containers.
Well, that brings a personal question up, because one of my favorite fruits are figs, and that's something you don't see in the store all the time. I guess, they're a little softer, not difficult, or not as easy to ship. But some of the varieties, and they're easy to grow, but some of the fresh varieties are just amazing.
They are. Oh, there's tremendous varieties of figs. And there's so many different varieties out there now. There's organizations now that are just simply devoted to coming up with seedling variations and introducing, new varieties of figs. And a lot of them are really replications of varieties that actually were introduced, 50 to 100 years ago. And that just, the happenstance, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing I ever had. But you go back and you look in, what's his name's book, the big, what's his name, out of UC Riverside, Ira Condon. You look at Condon's old books and you go, oh my gosh, a fig variety can have, 20 different synonyms. So you got to be a real expert on figs. I'm not that expert on figs, but I know a lot about figs, but I'm not that expert like some are.
Unless the name Newton is applied after it.
Oh, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Sometime when we're alone, I'll tell you some stories about that that'll
Some big fig stories.
Yeah, fig stories.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a disagreement with one of our listeners, Paula. And she says she grew up on a fruit farm in upstate New York. And the Macintosh were the first to ripen. Mackinaws, I'm thinking
they're
of
early. They're really, really early. And I'll tell you what, depending on, if she's up by Saratoga Springs or, closer to, the border up there by Canada, there's a whole bunch of different wonderful growers up in that area, and of course in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, all along that. I was in Connecticut. I grew up, in Connecticut, and that's where the Macs that I experienced were all from. And they all have one similar characteristic.
Well,
they're a soft-fleshed apple, but they have such a tight skin that it snaps. And the skin is kind of bitter, or tart is the word.
Right.
They're kind of tart. So when you bite, you're blending. It's kind of like eating a kumquat. You're kind of like blending the skin with that wonderful sweet flesh. And I think the flesh of a Mac grown in the East tends to be more firm and flavorful. It just has, and don't ask me why. It could very well be the terroir, the grounds are growing in, climate, I don't have a clue. Never studied that enough. But that's a wonderful thing.
She also mentioned they were her least favorite.
Oh, really?
Well, you know what? Let me tell you what. There's so many varieties of apples grown up in that area. So many. I mean, you go to pick orchards up there, and you're talking about, 50 varieties of apples. There's a wonderful orchard up in New Hampshire, and Scott Farm. I mean, it's an old Rudyard Kipling property that was willed or heired to an organization up there that grows the greatest apple collection that I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And they have orchards that are just pristine and all organic. And there's just things that I could glean off of that, just working around that environment, that I just can't. They're too far away.
This just came to mind when I was growing up, another soft-fleshed apple that, again, would only come out in, I think it was around the holidays back in Michigan. They called snow apple, and I think it's from France. Is it famous or something?
Yeah,
like
Fumas.
Fumas.
Yeah, Fumas. Well, how about this? That is supposed to be one of the parents to Macintosh.
Oh, really? I could see
Yeah.
that.
So it predates
Yeah,
Macintosh.
that's one of the parents to Macintosh. And then one of the spin-offs of that would be an apple that I really like is Empire. And Empire, definitely is an apple that everybody should investigate because it does well everywhere. And it has, attributes. It's a firmer apple than the Mac. Definitely got, a lot of disease resistance. It tends to not get the fire blight that I see on apples typically.
Look at that, old variety, but still proven. Hey, we're gonna have to take another a break right now. This will be upcoming. Will be our last spot with Ed.
Right,
So our,
last segment.
What do we got? An 8-minute.
We got about
spot
we'll have a 10-minute segment with Ed.
with Ed. So if you've got any more questions, please get them into the chat feature there, and we'll have Ed again wrapping up the whole show with Ed today. Wrapping up on our next spot, though.
Very kind to spend so much time with us, Ed Laivo. Thank you so much. Garden America taking a break for Biz Talk Radio. And we are back. This is our second to last segment, the last long segment with Ed Laivo as we continue. A lot of activity on Facebook Live. Thank you for the questions. Very popular topic as we continue. Back to you, Tiger.
Yeah, it's always so interesting to kind of hear when there's varieties of fruit specifically that predate old varieties to us. I mean, we're talking about this Macintosh apple, and it's, an old variety to us. But then you're talking about, these are its parents kind of a thing. And it's like, wow, that's amazing. And Ed, you were describing this Empire one, which predates the Macintosh, which is still very disease resistant. It's a strong tree, because usually when you get older, the issues are more disease, more problems, and but it's kind of neat to think that maybe that's what led a lot of our varieties into being more sustainable, being able to be grow in wider regions and things like that. So
but you know what, Tiger, I think a lot of it has to do with new and improved. It's kind of like, if every grower is growing a particular variety, and you have the opportunity to introduce something and make a big deal out of it, and that variety catches on, all of a sudden that old variety kind of starts to wane, and then you lose track of it, and then, of course, it's gone. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I did in my first years at Dave Wilson Nursery was go back. I went back in history and started looking at any variety that I could that was worthy of being brought forward again. And we, at Dave Wilson, we brought all kinds of varieties back from the dead, I guess, dang near. So, and there's, they still sell those as well, and only because they're great tasting varieties.
And they still have their reasons why. I mean, maybe it's a disease, maybe it's a growth height, maybe it's a growth habit. So it's always nice to have that database of varieties, so that way, because you never know. I mean, I'm assuming, early on that, you would, never think that people wanted to grow short trees, but now that's all the rave, right?
Well, I'll tell you what. So I'll give you an example of, just this year and what I experienced this year. There were a lot of great varieties that we came on, like, apricots. We came on like golden sweet apricot is one that I experienced at Burchell Nursery, and it's a Burchell introduction, and white knockout. These are two outstanding apricots. They really don't have a market at all because Burchell's primarily a commercial, just starting to delve into the retail. So when I left Burchell, Tom Burchell was gracious enough to say, hey, listen, if Wilson wants to, grow these varieties and represent these varieties, that's fine. And so Wilson took that on. It was great. And the freckle-faced nectarine falls into that, which not too many people are going to know this gentleman, but Andy Mariani, who's a dear friend of mine and also a fruit guru in the industry as far as I'm concerned, he definitely thinks that these are some of the best varieties. These are some of the best. But let me point out to your point, Tiger, and that is this year when we're looking at peaches, Kim Alberta, the Luther Burbank introduction, Kim Alberta was the favorite of the peaches in this season.
Hey,
people, the groups that I took out loved it, and Eva's Pride, a good low chill variety was big. Everybody loved that one as well.
We have a friend of ours from Boise area and wants to know what would be a good peach for the Boise area.
Well, Harkin is definitely a variety that gets grown up there quite a bit and definitely a favorite, one that everybody seems to love. So,
So
I definitely would
peach.
recommend that one right off the bat.
Is that Harkin or Ken?
K-E-N, I believe.
K-E-N. Harkin
Yeah.
peach.
Yeah, Harkin peach.
So that was Rick,
And
right?
then,
Right,
but
John?
Cold Hardy.
Right, that was Rick in Star, Idaho.
Well, the big cold hardy ones that everybody got excited about this year were the two plums, were the American hybrid plums, the one called Superior. And Superior, anybody could grow that one and be happy. That is an amazing, complex piece of fruit. And then the one called Toka or Bubblegum. It's just the oddest experience you'll ever have with a piece of fruit because it does taste like bazooka bubblegum.
Really?
It is amazing.
And that's a plum?
And they're Zone 5.
That's a plum?
They're both Zone 5 varieties.
Oh, wow. That's
So,
interesting.
and then another thing I'll point out, which was a lot of fun, is that I always knew that the Emerald Butte plum had a long hang time, but I also knew that by the time it hit, October, I always thought it was too sweet. So this year on my Edible Solutions, social media pages, I documented that. So I took Emerald Butte at harvest time, mid-August. We did the last Brix test on it. So I think we looked at it 4 different times. Last Brix taste on it was first week of November, and it Brixed out at almost 30 Brix,
Wow.
which is incredibly high.
Yeah.
That's like the sweetest grape you've ever tasted in your life.
That's fun. That's fun to see, like you saying, it also depends on the time that you pick it. So don't just throw one judgment out there, because you might be picking it early, you might be picking it late. And so you just got to, what was that time frame? It was from August to when?
August. We were still picking mid-November. When Tom came and visited and we did some videos,
Wow.
Tom and I did some videos together. Tom and I went out and did the last Brix taste on it. I think that was the mid-November, a couple weeks ago.
3-4 months gap. And
Yeah.
30 Brix. Wow.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah,
dentist says, give your kids candy because these plums are just too much sugar.
That's a fact, John. I mean, you can't believe, when you're eating a piece of fruit like that, you're either, one, just disgusted because you could put this on your pancakes,
Yeah.
or two, you're just amazed that something that sweet could be available to eat. That's your option. What a great option, huh?
Now, let me ask you this, because we've talked about a lot of areas. We talked about, the Pacific Northwest, apples, and the East Coast apples. Where do they grow still the most fruit trees? Is it Central California area where they still produce a lot of our fruit, or has that grown now because there's so many varieties that they're able to grow them in other areas?
Well, I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. Like, you're not going to find many apples,
Right.
in California, period.
Right.
I mean, there's small groups of apple growers all around, nothing like Washington State. And cherries probably are very dominant in California. Stone fruit in general, very dominant in California. Of course, the almond is king still in California. So, it depends. But regionally, like Minnesota State University is doing so much great hybridization work to take and satisfy some of those cold climate commercial growers, and they are producing some pretty outstanding varieties of fruit, as well as Sutherland hybridization up in D.C. I mean, all these different hybridizers throughout the country are working to make fruit more regional.
Yeah.
Simply because transportation costs are getting so high that it's just ridiculous to be able to take and, try to sell or try to pick something that's not ready, ship it all the way to, the East Coast, and then have people be dissatisfied with it and only buy it once.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I kind of see. I see definitely a lot more specific to region kind of growing happening. And that is exciting to see, because now people are going to get something that's actually ripe, actually, meant to be in that area, like we're talking about. And hopefully they'll be happy with it. Hey, Ed, we just have about a minute left, to chat with you. And I just wanted to hit on, I know we mentioned it a few times throughout the show, but you've got your YouTube channel. You've been producing a lot of fun videos, not just, with, varieties, but how to do things, what's coming out. So you can go, and it's Ed and then Able Solutions. So ABLE Solutions. It's kind of like edible solutions.
Right.
Go to YouTube, search
there's
it.
Two ways you can spell edible.
Yeah.
and when I was looking for a name, the one was taken.
Yeah, exactly. So you can subscribe to there. You got a bunch of videos up there. You're still going to continue posting more. What's your next video that you're going to release?
Well, like I said, I'm kind of putting together, the clips for a little blurb on cuties and what that means, because a lot of people go into the nurseries and ask for cuties, and if you want to be specific, a cutie is a clementine.
Yeah.
And originally, now it's morphed into something else, but the cutie was originally a clementine. So I'm just going to make a short on that one and talk about the history a little bit.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. You have a great West weekend, and have a great Thanksgiving, Ed. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
You got it. Thank you. Ed Laivo. There you go. Everything you always wanted to know, and some things you probably didn't want to know about fruits. But what a great education. Okay, it's time for a break. We've got one more segment coming up. We'll come back and address some of these issues in regards to fruits or whatever else is on your mind here on Garden America. Stay with us. Well, we have returned. Everybody catch your breath. We're finished with Ed Laivo, at least until the next time we bring Ed on. Yeah, a lot of information. And again, you could do this all day long. And like John mentioned, we're seeing new names on our Facebook page, which is great. A lot of people coming in. I guess if you're going to pick a topic, fruits seem to hit the masses, John, in terms of, we do a lot of topics here on Garden America. We have some interest in this or that, but fruits seems to be universal.
Well, there's so much that people don't know about fruit. And when you get an expert like Ed, who has all the background information about what's going on and what's new and what's coming up, it's amazing.
And he said, what did he say in August? It's last year's or...
Oh, on the apples.
On the apples.
Yeah, when you're eating apples that were harvested the year before.
Yeah, the year before in August. See, people don't know. They go into the stores and they see a variety, or perhaps like we talked about, the peach variety, which encompasses a lot of peaches, not just one variety. Uh-huh. Apples seem to do a good job in terms of breaking up the various varieties. But I think for the most part, the average person is a little ignorant going into the produce section when it comes to fruit.
Well, we've talked before about when you and I, at least, were growing up, Brian, that you went to the supermarket and you couldn't buy one type of fruit all year round. It's just when
they were out. Like they were
well,
out of apples.
It's out of season.
Or they were out of whatever.
There was a harvest time. Brian would wait all year for the Mackinaws to come in.
Boy, oh boy, I would sit by the window just, hoping something would happen.
Speaking of coming in, let's see here. We got a question from Carla, I think. with Thanksgiving so late, do you already have live Christmas trees at the nursery, Tiger? And yeah, live Christmas trees.
Well, they're
came
not
in.
really live.
Well, no, but no, there are
cut
live, but there are live trees we
Right.
have. So the live Christmas trees came in maybe about 3 weeks ago. The potted
The living
Christmas
ones.
trees, the living ones.
Yes.
But you also have cut.
But those just came in this week. So we've got our cut Christmas trees also in full stock, ready to go. The big sales weekend is the weekend after Thanksgiving, and then the biggest sales weekend is the weekend after.
Have the
that.
live trees, have they rebounded from what we talked about a
No.
couple of 2 or 3 years ago?
No.
Not yet. It's going to take a while, isn't it?
I think the live tree is a little bit dead in
I was going to say
Southern
the live
California.
tree industry is dead.
Yes. The company that pretty much
No,
was
you're
producing
talking,
them all.
just to be
potted.
clear for me, you're talking about living,
Living.
growing in pots.
Yes.
Yes.
When you say live tree.
Yes.
Not a cut tree is something different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the living, growing in pots. There is a company called Pinery who was producing pretty much all of the living Christmas trees for all of the West Coast. They just got too big. They couldn't keep up with the demand. So sometimes you would go into a nursery and you'd find a 6-foot tall living Christmas tree, and it was wonderful. You bring it home, you decorate it, you can have it for the season. Now, if you can find a 3 to 4 foot tall living Christmas tree, that's a win.
And then you would plant it in the ground, and 10 years later, call someone to come cut it down.
call Green Gorilla to take it out of your
There you
yard.
go.
Did you
yeah.
catch Veronica's question, John?
I did not see Veronica's question.
A plumeria question?
Right.
Oh.
Because of the warm weather, my plumerias are putting on new leaves. Should I be concerned?
I
reacting
wouldn't
to
be
the warm weather,
concerned,
no?
but I would not fertilize it.
Yeah.
And
Don't
I would
encourage
not-
it.
And no extra water.
Yeah.
Just let it realize it. I've gotten down to 39 at my house twice.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Which is
you're starting to
chilly.
see some of that damage
Yeah.
occur on the leaves, right? Yeah. It's funny. I went to a project this week up in Murrieta, and the customer got some new plants, and we're planting them. And one of the plants is a crepe myrtle, John. It's a big bush crepe myrtle, about 6 feet tall. And she's like, the leaves are all brown. I'm sorry, terrible accent. She was a very nice woman. But she's like, the leaves are all brown. They don't look good. And I'm like, it's a crepe myrtle. And there was one at her neighbor's house in the front yard. I'm like, look at that one. And it was yellow. The leaves are falling off of it. I'm like, I'm sorry to say, but in a week, yours
It's gonna
is
look
going to
like
look
that.
like that. We're probably even worse because we're going to plant it. It's going to go into shock.
Right.
And this came from a nursery probably somewhere in, Fallbrook or somewhere else where they kept it in this wonderful growing environment.
Uh-huh.
And now I'm taking it to Murrieta where it's going to drop into the 30s at night. And, I'm like, it's going to go dormant. It doesn't look good because of that reason, but she didn't have the knowledge of seasonality.
Right. And the fact that it was sold to her
Yeah.
from that great growing condition.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, and it's cold. It's cold up there. When I was there at 10 in the morning, it was still in the low 50s.
And the person or the people or the company or the business she bought it from, they didn't tell her that.
Yeah.
They just sold it to her.
Yeah.
We were talking about what you wanted for your birthday as far as the cake earlier. And,
Yeah.
And Sue mentions baked Alaska and Cherry's Jubilee.
Baked Alaska.
I-
Is that a fish pie?
When I went to, I remember.
You guys laugh, but I'm serious.
No,
I
baked- what is-
remember
but, I don't. Go ahead, John.
going to camp when I was little. They served baked Alaska, and it was like, oh my gosh.
Which is what again?
What
the
is baked
best
Alaska?
thing I've ever had. It's cake.
It's a dessert, very sweet dessert.
But the filling in the center of the cake?
Like frosting?
Yeah, it's ice cream.
It's ice cream?
Ice cream.
Right.
So you've got this.
So it's a cake with ice cream in the middle?
it's like going to
Yeah.
31 flavors. And bad
well,
example.
here you would get a warm cake
Yes.
with hard, vanilla ice cream in the middle, and it was just fantastic.
It was a warm cake
Yeah.
Yeah.
with vanilla ice cream in the middle?
Well, it's warm
Yeah.
when it comes out of the
Right,
oven.
right.
With
No,
ice cream,
that's the
so
way
you
it's
have the
served.
warm and ice
The
cream,
way
and then
it's
you have the
served.
cherries
So they've
Jubilee.
got to make that cake in warm, and then they have to put the ice cream in it. Like, it's not like an ice
You
cream
can't.
cake.
You don't bake the ice cream. No, it's not an ice cream cake.
Like an ice cream cake is like
Right.
That's cold and frozen.
Yes,
the whole thing.
So
No.
that sounds delicious.
Well,
I don't
yeah,
think
it's a great dessert for diabetics.
I don't think I've ever had a baked Alaskan.
There you go. You know what? Now that's what you have to do.
Well,
Not that
Sue mentions it's easy to make. I don't know if she's offering to bring you guys one, but
Yeah, that sounds very difficult to make. That's
Right?
like trying to bring a snowman to the beach.
Yeah. Hey, we're running out of time. We got to close things out. Are
man.
we pretty good, John?
Happy Thanksgiving.
We're
well,
gonna
how
have to
about
be.
quickly mentioning what we're going to do next week?
Yeah, next week we are going to have our holiday show, our holiday gift idea show. So
Okay.
you're going to want to tune in to get our input on if you have that gardener in your life, what they maybe want for the holidays.
And we're going to combine that with a rooting demonstration. People have asked us how to root cuttings.
Okay.
And we can work that into gifts, and you can learn how to make cuttings.
Okay. Have a happy Thanksgiving. We'll do it again next week. We are running out of time. Running late, but sounding great, as they say. I'm Brian Main, John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox. Enjoy your week. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. Thank you for tuning in. Always to Garden America. Take care.